The rain hammered against the windows of Memorial Hospital, its relentless rhythm echoing the chaos inside. Ryan Carter, a 40-year-old entrepreneur who had built an empire from scratch, found himself on the brink of death that stormy October night. His life hung by a thread as he fought through the unbearable pain in his chest. Amid the frantic activity of doctors and nurses, one presence stood out: Dr. Alina Monroe, a young resident with steady hands and a commanding yet calm voice. Her determination to save Ryan's life became his anchor in the storm. What began as a chance encounter that night grew into something much deeper, a connection that would inspire Ryan to embark on a 25-year journey of purpose and perseverance. As you listen to their story, you'll see how a fleeting moment changed not just their lives, but the lives of thousands. Outside, the October storm howled relentlessly, but inside the emergency room of Memorial Hospital, Ryan Carter was fighting for his life. The searing pain in his chest made every breath feel like a battle. Around him, doctors and nurses moved in frantic urgency, their voices blending into a cacophony of commands. Amid the chaos, one voice rose above the rest. Calm, authoritative, and grounding. "You're not going anywhere tonight." It was Dr. Alina Monroe, a young resident. Her steady hands and sharp focus seemed to bring order to the storm inside the room. Yet beneath her professionalism, Ryan sensed a quiet warmth, something that made him trust her completely. As the pain subsided thanks to medication and machines, Ryan began to notice the little details about her. The way she pushed her braids back without contaminating her gloves, the soft jazz tune she hummed while checking his vitals, and the gentle way she adjusted his pillow when she thought he was asleep. In the brief lulls between procedures, they started to talk. Alina shared stories of her childhood in New Orleans, how she would sit on her grandmother's porch, listening to jazz floating up from the clubs below. "My grandmother was a midwife," she said, pride glimmering in her eyes. "She cared for women who couldn't afford a doctor. That's why I became a physician, to follow in her footsteps." Ryan listened intently, captivated not just by her words, but by the quiet determination in her eyes. He opened up about his own journey, the sleepless nights spent building his business in a cramped apartment, surviving on instant noodles and coffee. "I thought success would fill the emptiness," he admitted, his voice tinged with regret. "But it didn't. My penthouse feels lonelier than my first apartment ever did." Looking at Alina, he began to wonder if purpose, not success, was what he had been searching for all along. Alina paused, meeting his gaze. "Maybe that's because you haven't found your true purpose yet," she suggested. "Success isn't about what you have, it's about what you do with it." Her words struck a chord deep within him, resonating with a truth he had long avoided. They continued talking, moving from dreams to regrets, from ambitions to fears. Alina shared her vision of opening community clinics for underserved populations, where people could receive care without worrying about costs. Ryan, for the first time in years, felt genuinely connected to someone who saw the world through a lens of compassion and purpose. The night slipped by in conversation, and an intangible bond began to form between them. As dawn broke, Alina leaned over to check Ryan's vitals one last time. Their hands brushed, and as their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them. Without thinking, their lips met. It wasn't just a kiss. It was an unspoken promise, a connection that transcended words. By morning, Alina was gone. A family emergency had pulled her away, leaving Ryan with nothing but a heart full of hope and the memory of the woman who had changed his life in a single night. When Ryan Carter woke up the morning after that fateful night, the room felt colder, emptier. Alina was gone. His heart felt hollow, as if something irreplaceable had slipped through his fingers. Yet, within the hollow ache, a silent promise began to take root. He would find her again, no matter how long it took. At first, Ryan searched the hospital, asking nurses and staff about her whereabouts. She was probably just a visiting resident, one staff member told him. But to Ryan, she wasn't just a resident. She was the woman who had saved his life and awakened something in him he hadn't felt before, a sense of purpose beyond success. Ryan began his search. He hired private investigators, combed through hospital directories, and attended every major medical conference he could find. Each time he saw a young doctor, his heart leapt with hope, only to sink when he realized it wasn't her. Nights were the hardest. Lying awake in his penthouse, staring at the city lights below, he wondered if she was looking at the same stars, thinking of him. Over time, Alina's words from that night began to reshape his life. She had shared her dream of building community clinics, places where modern medicine met human connection and tradition. Inspired by her vision, Ryan opened his first free clinic in Brooklyn. The opening was a success, with the community gathered in celebration. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of absence. She should be here, he thought, his eyes scanning the crowd in vain. Year after year, Ryan established more clinics across the country, each one carrying a piece of Alina's dream. But his search for her was still fraught with heartache. Once, an investigator told him about a doctor in Chicago who matched her description. Ryan flew there immediately, only to find disappointment once again. A decade passed, and technology began to change the way people connected. Ryan hired a team of specialists to scour medical databases, social media, and online conferences. They used keywords tied to New Orleans, jazz, and community healthcare, all tied to his memories of her. But despite their efforts, Alina remained a ghost. She can't just disappear, Ryan told his best friend Michael over dinner. She's not just any doctor, Michael. She's the one who showed me what it means to truly live. Michael sighed. Ryan, you've done so much good over the years, but maybe it's time to let go. Letting go isn't what I do, Ryan replied, his eyes filled with determination. His search for Alina didn't just change him. It changed the lives of thousands. The clinics Ryan established served millions, providing communities with access to healthcare they never thought possible. He began funding scholarships for medical students, particularly those from underserved backgrounds, ensuring the next generation could carry on the mission Alina had inspired. And yet, every morning he would wonder, could today be the day I find her? The years passed, but his hope never wavered. Each clinic he opened, each life he touched, was a way of saying that she was still the light, guiding him forward. 25 years, 2.5 decades of searching, Ryan Carter, now with silver hair and lines of wisdom on his face, still carried the fire of hope in his heart. He knew that no matter how much time passed, if he kept searching, his heart would eventually lead him back to her. After 25 years of searching, Ryan Carter began his morning as he always did, flipping through the pages of a medical journal with tempered hope. But this time a small article near the back stopped him in his tracks. It described a community clinic in rural Louisiana that combined modern medicine with traditional healing practices. The clinic's philosophy mirrored everything Alina had shared with him 25 years ago. Ryan booked a flight immediately. As his car wound its way through the tree-lined roads of Louisiana, his heart raced with both anticipation and fear. What if it isn't her, he wondered. But deep down, a quiet certainty told him that this time, he would find her. When Ryan arrived at the clinic, he looked through the window and saw her, Alina Monroe. She was standing at the nurse's station reviewing a patient's chart. Time had left its mark on her, silver streaks in her hair and a more composed demeanor. But Ryan recognized her instantly. The deft movements of her hands, the focused gaze, the quiet presence that had stayed with him all these years. Their eyes met through the glass. Alina froze, the clipboard slipping from her hands, her fingers rising to cover her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Ryan stepped out of his car, each step heavy with the weight of 25 years apart. The clinic's automatic doors slid open. Alina stood motionless, her eyes locked on Ryan. "I never stopped searching for you," Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion. Tears streamed down Alina's face. "And I never forgot you," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of joy and pain. They sat together in her office, surrounded by photos of patients and colorful drawings from children in the community. Alina began to share her story, how she had left the hospital to care for her grandmother after a stroke, and how she had started building community clinics from the ground up. Ryan listened intently, his heart swelling with pride and emotion. "These clinics you've built," he said, his voice choked, "are the dreams you shared with me that night, and you've made them real. Alina looked at him, tears still glistening in her eyes but shining with joy. "And you?" she asked softly. Ryan smiled. "Everything I've done, every clinic I've opened, has been because of that night. I wanted you to see that your dream inspired the world." In that moment, they realized that their lives, though lived on separate paths, had always been intertwined. They hadn't just found each other, they had found the purpose that had bound them together since that fateful night 25 years ago. When Ryan Carter and Alina Monroe found each other again, they both understood that their reunion was not just the conclusion of a long search, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one they would write together with love and purpose. A few days after their reunion, they spent time visiting Alina's clinics. In each small clinic, Ryan could see her touch. Walls adorned with children's drawings, herb gardens blooming with traditional plants, and an atmosphere of warmth radiating from the care her staff provided. One evening, they sat together on a bench in the garden behind Alina's largest clinic, under the soft glow of string lights. It was then that they began to share the details of their lives over the past 25 years. "Ryan," Alina began hesitantly, her voice soft, "I used to wonder if you were happy. I hoped you had found love, maybe even a family." Ryan smiled faintly, his eyes distant. "I tried. There were a few people, but no one could fill the space you left behind. They said I was in love with a memory, but the truth is, I was in love with a real person. You, Alina." He paused, meeting her gaze. "Everything I've done in the past 25 years, from the clinics to the scholarships, was because of the dream you inspired in me." Alina sighed, her eyes glistening with emotion. "And me? I told myself I shouldn't wait. I had a few relationships and even thought about settling down." She smiled faintly. "But no one truly understood me the way you did that night. They wanted me to choose love or my work. I couldn't, so I stayed here, alone, pouring everything into building what I dreamed of." Ryan was silent for a moment, then gently took her hand. "I didn't come here to disrupt your life, Alina. I came to tell you that you've been the light guiding me, even when I didn't know where you were." Alina lowered her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "And you've been mine, Ryan. I never forgot you. Not even once." One evening later, under the garden's twinkling lights, Ryan knelt before her. His hands trembled slightly as he held out a simple but meaningful ring. For the first time in years, the man who had faced boardrooms full of executives felt nervous. What if she says no, he thought, the weight of 25 years pressing down on him. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, full of warmth and quiet joy, his fears melted away. "Alina," he said, his voice trembling, "you saved my life, my body and my soul. Let me spend the rest of my life by your side, making our dreams come true. Will you marry me?" Tears fell freely from Alina's eyes as she nodded. "I've waited 25 years for this moment. The answer is yes," she whispered. They chose to marry in the very garden where she had dreamed of a brighter future. The ceremony was small but deeply meaningful, with patients and scholarship recipients seated side by side, a living testament to the love and legacy they had built together. During her wedding speech, Alina took Ryan's hand. 25 years ago, I didn't just save a patient. I found someone who would help me make my dreams a reality. We walked separate paths, but we found each other again because our purpose was always the same." Ryan smiled, his eyes filled with joy. "And now, we'll continue this journey together," he said. "Not just to love, but to change the world." Under the Louisiana sunset, two people who had spent their lives living for something greater than themselves stood hand in hand. They had not only found each other, they had found completion through love and legacy. After their intimate wedding in the garden behind Alina's clinic, Ryan Carter and Alina Monroe began their married life not just with love, but with a shared sense of purpose. For them, marriage was not just about personal happiness, it was about continuing the mission that had brought them together. Instead of a traditional honeymoon, they spent their first weeks visiting the clinics they had each built. At every stop, they sat down with doctors, patients, and community members, listening to the stories of lives they had helped transform. "Since you came into my life, everything feels different," Alina said as they stood together in the herb garden of a clinic in New Orleans. I feel like my dream has finally found its wings. Ryan smiled, his hand gently squeezing hers. It's not just your dream anymore. It's ours, and there's so much more to build. Together, they launched new initiatives, combining Ryan's expertise in urban clinics with Alina's deep understanding of community-based care. They co-founded a new nonprofit organization with a mission to bring free healthcare to underserved rural areas across the United States. In the mornings, they often sat together in the garden behind their home, sipping coffee and planning their next steps. Alina would tell Ryan about the patients who had touched her heart, while Ryan shared ideas for expanding scholarship programs and training opportunities. But their life wasn't all work. In the evenings, they would play jazz records and dance together under the soft glow of their living room lights, reminiscent of the New Orleans nights Alina had once described. They hosted small dinners, inviting friends, colleagues, and the medical students they had mentored over the years. One day, during a visit to a newly opened clinic, a young girl ran up to Alina and wrapped her arms around her. "Thank you, Dr. Monroe, for making my mommy better," the girl said, her eyes shining with gratitude. Ryan watched the scene, his heart swelling with pride. "You've created something extraordinary, Alina," he said as they walked away. "You're not just saving lives, you're giving people hope for generations to come." Though they had no children of their own, they considered the patients, medical students, and communities they had served as their extended family. Ryan often joked that they had thousands of children scattered across the country, people carrying forward the legacy they had built. Life wasn't without its challenges. Long workdays, the pressure of managing a nonprofit, and the weight of expectations sometimes left them exhausted. There were nights when they disagreed over decisions, their voices rising with frustration. But in those moments, they would take a step back, remember the story that had brought them together, and find their way back to understanding. But whenever they felt overwhelmed, they would sit down together, talk openly, and draw strength from the story that had connected them 25 years ago. "We can't do it all," Alina said one evening, resting her head on Ryan's shoulder after a particularly draining day. "But we can do small things with great love." Ryan kissed her hair and whispered, "And that's why we'll never stop trying." Their marriage wasn't a fairy tale, but it was a testament to partnership, shared dreams, and love built on a foundation of purpose. They knew their journey was far from over, but they also knew that the journey itself was what made their lives complete.